Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard, and I'm very happy to have Renetta Amador with me. Hey, Renetta.
Hi.
All right, so we just had a wonderful interview podcast where we talked all about Renetta and her life and career, as well as the film Processing that she made. And I'll just go ahead and mention Gummies, the film that came after it, which is in post right now. And when I say right now, around March 2023. But anyhow, so if you want to learn all about Renetta and her work, listen to the podcast before this one, because this podcast is going to be Renetta answering the Discover Indie Film 4 questions, which are: name 3 favorite films, name an underrated film, name an overrated film, and name a lesser-known film that people should seek out. But I kind of jumped the gun there because before I let Renetta answer, I'm going to mention that if you want to see her film Processing, well, it's in the Discover Indie Film TV series that was born out of this podcast. So just go to Amazon Prime Video and a nice big TV, search for Discover Indie Film, and it's right there. I think in season 7. I normally write that down. I'm so bad this time. And if you also want to watch it and see a lot of other really cool shit, everything in the Discover Indie Film TV series is wonderful short films. It's just an anthology of short films. But if you want to watch it on a new streaming service called TVHi, TVHi, you can learn about it if you go to watchtvhi.com, or it's on pretty much every smart TV platform, from Apple TV, Android TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, all those TVs, and your phone. You can download it to your phone. So anyway, I'm just going to throw it right to you, Renetta. You want to name a couple of your favorite films?
Sure. This is always so difficult for me. But I was able to pick out 3 that were, at the very least, very influential on me, for me. First one, The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, Her Lover.
I have thrown my arms in the air. That is one of my favorite films of all time. And you are the first person out of, I think, about 170, 180 filmmakers have been on this podcast, and no one's mentioned that film. And it is my all-time favorite.
I just recently saw it. I'm a member of American Cinematique, and they had Peter Greenway do a Q&A, and they screened it. And I think I cried when he walked out. I thought it was just I'd never seen it on the big screen, number one. But this movie, for me, I mean, it introduced me to so many actors I love. Tim Roth and Helen Mirren. A lot of Helen Mirren. She looks hot. It was just a really beautiful, amazing movie with Gautier doing the wardrobe. But more than anything, it really influenced me, and it taught me about the use of color in film. So I always recommend that people watch this movie when they're getting ready to direct, not to copy it, but just to learn about using color as a tool and almost as a character of the movie, which I really felt he did. And
just to see creativity. So you just get the idea of like, oh, I can step outside the bounds of what people normally do.
Exactly. And it was fascinating to listen to him talk about it. Because the other thing is, and you, Jeff, and I know each other through a short film that I did, and we talk a lot about horror movies. But the thing that people kind of tend to forget, that in horror films, you can really talk about and express what is going on in a society. And The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, Her Lover is not necessarily a horror film. Horrific things may happen, and I'm not even really sure what to classify it as. But he was talking about how that whole movie for him stemmed from what was going on in his country with Margaret Thatcher at the time. And so it was really fascinating to me because I've never once gotten that or thought that from that movie. But it also really reiterated my feelings, or validated them, about how you can really use films in different genres to express what is going on in the world and how you feel about it, but just by thinking outside the box.
Beautiful film. Okay.
My other one would be Nausicaa, Miyazaki. I'm a huge Miyazaki fan. Obviously, let's just show you my Totoro in progress here. But obviously his animation is unrivaled, and his storytelling just is so beautiful to me, and how people interact with each other in the relationships, and really how you can come together. Whether you're thought of as the good guy or the bad guy, there's always a place to meet in the middle to really create a purpose for the better. That's not said very eloquently, but you get it. It doesn't have to be one side or the other. You can meet in the middle and really create something even better.
I love that it's also the kind of animation that dazzles you with beauty instead of like technical, you know what I mean?
It's just art. It's pure art.
It's moving painting, yeah.
It's beautiful to watch. And again, this was something that I went to the Alamo Draft House when they had their Miyazaki brunches. And I got to see it on the big screen for the first time.
I've never, ever seen any of it on the big screen.
It is. I saw a few. I saw Nausicaa. I saw, My Neighbor Totoro and Spirited Away, because I love No Faces. I'm obsessed. And they're just breathtaking beautiful. The third one I listed was originally City of Lost Children. And if you watch Processing, you will very much so see how I was influenced by the color in my movie with the coloring of City of Lost Children. And even in Gummies, the music of the City of Lost Children was a big influence on the style of music I used for Gummies. I did see Jean-Pierre Jeunet speak and present Amélie, and I saw him. There was another movie, and I never remember the title, that he spoke and did a Q&A to as well that same weekend that I went to. And I was just so inspired by him. And a little bit like, as a filmmaker, you get so frustrated because you're like, this is a great idea, and Hollywood's just shoveling out the same remake after remake after remake. Why don't they take a chance? But you don't think about a filmmaker at his level also having the same problems. And he was talking about how his films are quirky, and there's no place in Hollywood right now for quirky. If you're not superhero or this or that, they won't give him any money to make quirky. But, Amélie stemmed from a short film, and he showed and presented the short film he made before he did Amélie, and it was just a very eye-opening experience, being able to listen to this very acclaimed and established director having the same feelings and going through the same thing that as an indie filmmaker, I think, and I go through and I question. So yeah, that was my third one. And then today I decided I was going to replace it with Frankenstein, just because I just have a sweet tooth for Frankie.
You can just have 4.
Yeah.
No rules here.
So
By the way, City of Lost Children, I love that film. And actually,
so beautiful.
I always hear, in fact, I live with someone who Amélie is in her top 3, but I just love City of Lost Children getting the nod because I will never, I was fortunate enough to be, it was not American Cinematheque, but Independent Feature Project, which is now Film Independent or whatever.
Oh, right.
I got to see a screening, like an early screening of it. And I just think that's one of the most amazing films ever made.
Ron Perlman, like who knew?
Yeah.
The whole movie.
Acting in French.
And the other thing is, he was someone that I first really noticed. I'm not saying he was the first to do it or anything like that, but for me, realizing he uses the same actors repeatedly. He has this relationship with actors, and you can really tell as you watch his films progress, this like friendship and shorthand that they have with one another. And I can only imagine that they give him so much and they get so much from him because they've done so many projects together. And it started getting me thinking about forming a film family. That being said, I do think sometimes some filmmakers overuse that and they just put in the same actors that may not necessarily be right for the role. but he is someone who very much does it right.
Well, his are always wonderful.
And the use of color is just mind-blowing.
And it was, I could be wrong, there could have been films that came before, but it was also such a return of the dark fairy tale, right?
Yes.
Right. It was the least Disney children's fairy tale that's ever been told to me, in my opinion.
100%. And like I said, it heavily influenced processing because without giving too much away, there are two very different looks in processing. There's this sickly green that I chose on purpose to evoke subconsciously certain feelings, but then there's this rich red and brown and gold that I really wanted to represent flesh and blood for certain other reasons and warmth and life. And, 100% got that influence from City of Lost Children.
Just wonderful. What an amazing filmmaker. And yeah, I know, isn't it crazy when these icons do a Q&A and say, yeah, I have a couple of dream projects I can't get off the ground. It's always just...
You're looking at him, you're like, you're multi-nominated Oscars, everywhere there is, and nobody wants to give you money. What does that say for me? But...
Well,
it's the ebb and flow.
Once met a screenwriter at a barbecue who claimed, and he's actually a big shot now, but he claimed that he had written an animation script that everyone at SKG loved, including, like he said, Steven Spielberg turned to him and said, I love this script. I wish I could get it made. But he couldn't. It was just wrong for the time or something. And I'm like, really? Spielberg can love something and not be able to get it made? Well, right. That just completely turned the entire planet upside down for me.
Well, and I think, though, that you got it right when you said it's timing.
Yeah.
It's also what does, especially right now we're in such a weird place coming off of COVID. What do people really want to see and spend their time seeing? I think right now people want to feel good. They want the action. They want the Marvel. They want to know the good guys win.
I want some comedy.
I just want some blood and guts.
Oh, good.
I'm always going to want blood and guts.
Well, your second question is a film that you consider underrated.
About Time.
That's the go on. I know I've seen it, but I'm blanking.
Yeah, it's the time travel movie. It's an English film.
Yes.
British? Yes. And right now I'm seeing the actress from The Notebook. What's her name?
Rachel McAdams?
Is she in it?
I got to look it up now.
It's been a minute since I've seen it.
By the way, I am a huge sucker for a time travel movie.
I know it's Bill Nighy.
Oh, yeah.
Who is amazing in it. He's amazing. And I just really like this one purely...
It is Rachel McAdams.
Yeah.
What do you know?
I love it purely for the storytelling. I love it for the story, and I love it for the relationships and how it shows the complicated relationships and how important the relationship between a parent and a son is, and just all the dynamics. I think the storytelling is beautiful and great, and I think I ugly cried throughout most of it. Not necessarily for sadness, but just I found it beautiful, and most people I know haven't given it a watch.
Agreed.
I think a lot of people are like, "Ooh, time travel," but it's really told in a very smart way.
Well, it's Richard Curtis, who, for those who, I mean, everyone should know who that is. If the started as the king of rom-com, but he's one of the best writer-directors on the planet, I assume. I mean, I thought Yesterday was actually kind of like one of the best cases of magical realism I'd ever seen.
That was really fun. I did enjoy that.
Yeah.
I forgot that. Yeah. If you haven't seen it, I would really, if you just...
Yeah, About Time is
what a lovely movie.
Excellent pick.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm rubbing my hands together. Overrated. And by the way, you just made a face. I'll add overrated. You're not saying bad film. It could be a film that you say this is a very good film. I'm just saying that the awards it got, or too many people say it's the best film ever, and it's not. So anyway,
I know people are going to hate me when I say what it is.
Excellent.
Well, the first one is Boyhood.
Understandable.
I was just like, this is a snooze fest. Why am I still watching this? I could give a shit.
Cool methodology. Didn't result in it was a great thought.
I appreciate,
produce.
how he did it. I appreciate, the time it took. I will, even the worst of films, I appreciate what it took to make it. I'm just not a fan. I'm like, I don't get it. Which is funny. I'll name a third one just because I will also be crucified for it. But the second one is Forrest Gump. I saw it once. I've never seen it again. I never need to see it again. I think I was really kind of upset because I try to remind people younger than me, of a certain generation, when that movie was made, we were at a really weird time. So basically, when I grew up, especially growing up in a certain, part of Texas, the worst thing that could happen to you was maybe get pregnant or maybe you get crabs. I don't know, but we got into college and all of a sudden AIDS came on the set. HIV and AIDS, and nobody knew what happened. And now you're fearing for your life. So the age of having casual sex and unprotected sex was taken away from us, and we lived in fear. Like my early 20s, living with a touring musician were sketchy times for me, where I was always like, what are you doing? Who are you doing it with? Because my entrance into that world was my boss, my neighbor, both dying of AIDS. Oh, and my landlord. They all three died of AIDS. Within the first couple of years, I lived in Austin, Texas back then. And it was very, very scary. So I see Forrest Gump, and I just kind of was, you have this free spirit, and was it Robin Wright Penn?
Yeah.
This free spirit who's living her life and living outside the box, and then they make her have HIV, AIDS, and she dies. And I just felt like it was playing into a fear that we already had and was unnecessary. Like, why couldn't she just be a woman of her own means in life and how she wanted to live it without the tragic ending of having HIV, AIDS, and dying? But that's just, of course, me on a personal level. I thought that was just kind of almost an easy out and playing to people's fears and sympathies of what was happening at that time. And we already had enough of it. I mean, the moment, I still remember where I was sitting when Magic Johnson announced he was HIV positive. And that was such a huge, realization that it could be anybody. And you had no idea how it was transmitted back then. They assumed.
Yeah, I know people were. Yeah, it is funny to recall. My mom was a dental hygienist who retired immediately because no one knew if cleaning someone's teeth you could get AIDS, because she happened to be a dental hygienist in a majority gay neighborhood.
And back then they said it was just a disease striking down the homosexuals.
Yeah.
And then Magic Johnson gets it. And then you're like, well, you lied,
Yeah, turns out sleeping with hundreds of people can get you in trouble no matter what. But and I'll add to your Forrest Gump, I believe, I might be wrong, but I believe for Best Picture, it beat Shawshank Redemption and Pulp Fiction.
I was so angry. I'm one of these weirdos. Like, I have not missed watching the Oscars since I was in high school, and we'll just say that's a long time. And I'm like, how do you beat Shawshank? Like, how do you beat Pulp Fiction? And
I think it's a good film, actually. I don't have a problem with it, but
like I said, it's not a terrible film.
Better than those two. I mean, obviously, Pulp wasn't going to win, but
no. But I mean, Shawshank still holds up. Like,
that's on more top 10 lists than Forrest Gump will ever be. But it just shows. Right. I always thought the coolest thing would be to hold a ceremony 10 years later. And go back to the film
and see, do these still hold up?
Yeah, the top 100 films from that year, and say, okay, who would win Best Picture today? Well, because it'd never be the same film.
No, 100%. I mean, gosh, even in the past several years, there have been movies that have won that I'm like, what the hell is going on? Is it slim pickings? Like, I don't get it.
No, they're gonna like the vote gets divided among certain things. Yeah, whatever.
Right,
happens,
and I also come from a thought that I'm not saying is right, I'm not saying it's wrong, but I just feel like Oscar-nominated films should be of a certain caliber and meet a certain criteria. And,
we can, after we're done recording, I'll mention something else to you. But did you have one more to mention, or did you say you had 3 overrateds, or just the?
I didn't know. I can't remember what the other one was. It was Boyhood, and it was
Boyhood and Forrest Gump. By the way, I'm glad you mentioned Boyhood. I'll just jokingly add that someone put Boyhood as their overrated and then called me a week later and said, I'm up for a Linklater film. Can you delete that? So it's one of the things I had. So Boyhood's inclusion on this list got deleted once, so I'm glad it's back on.
Yeah, no.
Not to be against it. It's just...
Listen, you're talking to the jerk who was having lunch a couple of months back. I always had lunch on my last film I did with the visual effects people. And they were like, oh my gosh, who's going to see Avatar? And I was like, fuck Avatar. Like, it's like 5,000 hours of my life, and it's just the same damn movie. Like, I can't even sit there. And I didn't realize that I was sitting with 2 of the visual effects artists from Avatar. That's me.
Fair enough.
So there you go. But, I just say it.
Well, we got question number 4, which is a lesser-known film for people to seek out.
I went, I try to spread out the love with genres, and I went with Tell No One, which is a French movie. I believe it's Guillaume Cadet directed it, and he actually, in a fun fact, is life partners with Marion Cotillard. And I think it's one of the best thrillers I've ever seen.
I added it to my personal list of stuff to watch because
so
I love all the other things you named, so we clearly have some overlapping taste.
It came out probably early 2000s, early-ish mid-2000s. Has one of the best car chases I've ever seen. And actually, as a filmmaker, I think, as a director, he's very, very good. He's also an actor. Like him and Marianne did one of my favorite rom-coms called Love Me If You Dare. So I think he's just a very smart filmmaker, and I love to see his stuff. So I'm always telling people when they want a good action thriller movie, watch Tell No One.
Excellent. And Marion Cotillard, or however you pronounce it. I'm not very good at pronouncing.
I was getting tongue-tied.
For some reason, I'm going to mention that she also has an amazing sense of humor. In addition to because she did like a Funny or Die video, I think, where she had a breast on her forehead.
I believe it. That's hilarious. No, but now I'm going to look it up.
I'm pretty sure it was like all about like how men couldn't take their eyes off of.
Right.
It was very funny.
Well, if you want a good rom-com, do Love Me If You Dare. It's about 2 little kids who meet and start one-upping each other with dares, and then it follows them as they grow into adults, and the dares become detrimental.
Sounds excellent. Added.
That's good.
All right.
So that's it. Thank you.
We can wrap it up. First of all, your website, Mexicutionerproductions.com, and your social media will be clickable links on this podcast in the show notes. Show notes. I'm supposed to sound like a podcaster. I'm in show notes. For anyone who wants to watch Renetta's wonderful film Processing, you can do that if you go to Amazon Prime Video and search for Discover Indie Film. It auto-completes somewhere in the word indie because there's Discover India and then Discover Indie Film. So there's only 2 Discover INDs on Amazon Prime Video. So fun fact there. And enjoy Processing, that I believe is in season 7 of the Discover Indie Film TV series. If you want to learn more about this podcast or the TV series that was born from it, just go to discoverindiefilm.com, and it's at DIFwins. And like and subscribe. Be kind. Don't be a troll. You should watch Processing and then give that episode 5 stars, because why not? It's fantastic. Won many awards on the festival circuit. And as long as I mention the festival, It was an official selection of the Sherman Oaks Film Festival in 2021, which wasn't quite out of the COVID woods, but anyhow, you can learn about that festival that we hold every November if you go to ShermanOaksFF.com, and it's at ShermanOaksFF on social media. The sister festival, Film Invasion Los Angeles, that we hold every June is something you can learn about if you go to FilmInvasionLA.com, and it's at FilmInvasionLA on social media. I didn't mention this last time, but by the way, both those festivals are ranked in the top 100 best reviewed worldwide by filmmakers, and that's out of 12,000 festivals. Really weird. But anyway, I'm very grateful. And I'm grateful to people like Renetta, who it's the filmmakers that put us in the top 100. And the last thing I got to mention is, of course, the streaming service TVHi. If you go to watchtvhi.com, it's only $4.20 a month to subscribe. And it's $4.20 a month because TVHi is wonderful indie content that is great to watch in any state. But if you can use drugs responsibly, and if marijuana is legal, or if you can get it, whatever, it's really good to watch this stuff high. What can I say? So it's watchtvhi.com. And I think that's it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming in.
Sure, I understand.
I don't even know how my watch thought I was talking to it. But anyway, thank you, Renetta.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.